Good morning, Protected Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. Oh, we had a decent day in the room yesterday. We had some longs, some shorts, some longs, some shorts. Playing off our system, playing off our squeeze clouds, our range, and trend line from lows. So we're starting to kind of get our recovery pop. Yesterday we did get up and fill the gap at least. Closing back below it, but holding our trend line. Overnight, we tapped that trend line once, then held it on a second attempt to make an H. Did not make that H, held that trend line, and so we carried up. Buyers stepped in this increasingly higher low trend line. So, nice push overnight. Now we are trying to settle where we topped out yesterday. Get rid of the drop. There we go. Now we can see it a little better. So, let's see today and at open if we can hold the highs from yesterday. You can see all of our wicks got up here a little bit above, right? We got up to about 40.65, but all of those wicks on a 30-minute, or all of those candles on a 30-minute closed at or below that 40.56. Now that we're above it, it needs to be support. I do have another trend line from overnight, just connecting some of the lows, like I connected from here to this first one, so that we have a more gradual trend line. Then I connected that same wick up to some of these low wicks, so that we have a more aggressive trend line. So let's see if the overnight pressure to go higher holds, meaning we hold this key level, or at least the more aggressive trend line. Looking to get up to the next levels above, all right? To the upside, we have now taken out 40.56. Next will be 40.71, 87, 4100 psych level, and a couple of levels here right above 4100, 4101, 4108. If we can continue to the upside, I'm looking to get back to that 4108, 4110. The daily 8 sits at 4115. And if I kind of overlap that, if you look to the left, that was the lows of last week before pushing up to test the trend line from the highs of this selling off after we rejected the 200, right? We ran into trend line from highs of year, right around that daily 200. We drifted down and then sold off more, creating a new trend line that we are stuck underneath. One thing to note, now that we have got a couple of days, that trend line has now come down to be about where the daily 21 is. So the trend line that we sold off from once, and then again on Friday, we can get back to test that at the same time that we'll be testing the 21. Basically, we've opened up the ability to head back up, and from an overbought scenario where we were up near third Keltner as we're trying to break through. Now we can start to break through at the mean, and by the time we're up to third Keltner, we can be above or back to test the highs of year again in the daily 200, which has also progressively gotten lower, back to 4,300. So let's see today if we can hold up 40.56, try to push higher and fire this 1 hour and 2 hour squeeze to the upside. We kind of have them stacked on top of each other, at least the tops of them. Yep. So we've got a 1 hour and 2 hour right at that 40.71. Let's see if we can push through. Luckily, it's not high compression. Starting to open up, so it can be easier to push through that. If we reject and start to lose this trend line, we'll slip back into our range from yesterday and to test the trend lines from lows of this week so far, which would be slipping back to 40.40. Below that, we'll slip down to the daily 8 to start retesting the lows that allowed us to keep bouncing at that trend line. So we've got upside target, that daily 8, downside target, that daily 50, and the bottom of these squeezes. It's also, we've got the daily 100 in here. So if I just come here and 100, we're also kind of resisting the daily 100 as we try to hold yesterday's highs. So let's see if we can take off from the daily 100 to get to the daily 8, or if we keep rejecting and it sends us back to the daily 50, pretty much an equal spread between, and that 100 kind of cutting in the middle. So we've got clear upside, clear downside targets. We are in the middle of squeezes. We can stay between this 100 and the 50, and these squeezes stay intact and start to stack up even more. Or we can start to push since they're opening up already. In Q. Good morning. Let's see, we got Billy Endo in the chat. Morning, sir. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We just covered ES. On NQ, we did a great job yesterday holding our key level at that 458. We held it pre-market. We ran into our squeeze tops. Came back to retest it, held it again on that pullback. So we go back to squeeze tops that we started to reject once and then twice for that little end of day slip back to the daily 50. We guided up overnight, just like on ES where we drew our trend lines from lows. I suggest that on all the indices. You can see that's kind of where we bounced overnight when we attempted that H, just like on ES. So we keep heading higher through the daily 50 up to our squeeze top. For today, let's see if we can push through this daily 100, this overnight high. First goal getting back to this 12,690 and then 12,790. You can see that was kind of the last settle point on Friday's sell-off. We have the daily 8 just above that. If we keep rejecting this pre-market high or that 690, fall back below the daily 100, we can slip down to the daily 50 again for another test of this trend line that's carrying us up. Should we start to lose that, I'm going to retest this for 58 and 400, where that 2-hour squeeze bottom sits and that daily Keltner sits. So our 2-hour squeeze now spans from the second Keltner down to the first Keltner, which we already tested pre-market. So let's see if we can carry through and get back up to the daily 8, or if we reject and roll back from that first Keltner to the 50 and maybe even that second Keltner which would be a new low of week. On the ready, relatively strong yesterday. I mean, as you can see, we opened the cash session, got up to our squeeze tops. On our pullback, we set a higher low. And even around close, we, pretty much held that higher low. Right at that first Keltner down. Up to its squeeze tops, which are, at least on this 1 hour, yeah, they are a little compressed compared to ES. So we'll see if Ready can get back through yesterday's high. It is slipping below, whereas on the other indices we were still trying to hold it a little. So let's see if Ready can pop up quick to take out yesterday's highs. First stop, 1900 is a big key level. So getting through that and holding it on pullbacks and trying to push further, very good sign for the rest of the market that we are trying to continue this uptrend to get back to something like the daily mean. So that's our upside target on Ready. If we can get through this 2-hour squeeze top, if we can't get through and stay above 1900, we can roll back to retest this daily Keltner around 1880, the trend line that is starting to carry us up. If we get through that, back down to this 2-hour squeeze bottom around 1870, 1868. YM. Oh, also, for everyone in our server, you may have gotten last night a friend request from somebody that was posing to be me. We're going to get this from time to time. Somebody entered Discord, our server in Discord, changed their name to mine, changed their picture to mine, their description, everything to match mine, and then started sending friend requests to everybody. Some folks notified me, so I kicked that imposter out of the server. Just to let you guys know, out of a security reason, I'm never going to send you a friend request directly from me, because that is what somebody trying to scam or pose like they're me is going to do. You are welcome to send me a friend request in Discord, and I'll accept, no problem. But yeah, always make sure you double check that it's my number after my name in Discord. Because I think that's the second imposter that we've had so far. So yeah, YM. On YM. Did a great job of trying to defend that 32,000. Only slipped it a little bit on pullbacks to tag this 30-minute squeeze bottom. But held 32,000, pushed up to about 200, 300 at the top of this squeeze. Now we are above 200 and have VWAP above that as well. So looking for us to hold at least 32,200 on pullbacks. You can see our trend line that's been carrying us up from overnight, right around that 32,200. So let's see if that can provide support, get us up to the daily 100 on YM. Also have the first Keltner up there. Got down almost to the second Keltner. And now the first one sits at the top of the squeeze. So let's see if we can hold trend line, get through squeeze top and that first Keltner to get to this daily 100. Past that, it would be the daily 8, which is now kind of caught up with YM's lows. of last week before the Friday sell-off. If we can't get through Keltner or the daily 100, or we start to lose our trend line from overnight, going back to test 200, should that give out? The daily 50 sits at 32,100. Should that give out back to test 32,000 and that second Keltner down, which is near our 31,800 and this 2-hour squeeze bottom. Apple. As we go through individual names, you want to try to take note of which names had relative strength and which are looking a little weaker. Apple was definitely a big part of the downside pullback. Didn't even get up to its squeeze tops, but dumped to its squeeze bottoms, and then just recovered kind of back to its highs, which still weren't really reaching up during the cash session to try to fill the gap. The gap being up around 163.5, we'll call it. Didn't get up to try to do that, even though the market did get up and slap where it closed on Friday. So, little relative weakness in Apple. It is at least gapping up with the market and up above its highs from yesterday, kind of trying to hold that. So let's see if Apple's going to wake up and try to push into these squeeze tops, or if it's going to be having dramatic pullbacks. You know, a little leading to the downside versus leading to the upside yesterday. If we start to give up, we're going back to fill the gap. Right around this 161. I know we closed 161.38. Should that give out, we're retesting yesterday's lows at the bottom of this 1-hour squeeze. We did not fully get down to test 159.5, but we got close yesterday. So that is the downside target if we start to roll over on Apple on the market. But if we can hold, 162, start to push up through 163. Goal is to at least get back to fill the gap on Friday around that 163.5. And if we can push further, 165, the daily 21. AMD. AMD, even weaker yesterday. In fact, it just kind of went down. Little relief bounce to VWAP, then went down further. Gapping up with the market, back above our key levels in the daily 50, even though it closed below the daily 50. So, not looking for chips to lead to the upside necessarily, after seeing this bit of weakness. I guess you could say AMD did get up in the first candle to kind of fill the gap. Then it gave it out. So, chips definitely looking weaker. On AMD, let's see if it can hold this 89 on a pullback. If it can and get going again, needs to take out 90 on its way back to yesterday's highs. And that daily 100, which is now at our key level at 91.91. Should we start to lose this 89, going back to test yesterday's lows, and this key level at 87.89. Sorry, just checking in on Discord. Had some messages from folks. Let's see, Amazon. A little bit better to the upside, right? Instead of dumping and then dumping back like we saw in Apple and AMD. Tried to get going, hit squeeze tops, fell back and held its overnight lows. Didn't even need to get to that squeeze bottom before heading back up. Gapping up with the market, this little wick, something to keep an eye on. Retesting pre-market low. So on Amazon, let's see. As far as filling the gap, kind of already happened early in the day yesterday, then got up and held for most of the afternoon before dumping in the last candle, just below kind of that gap. But up above where we closed on Friday, let's see if we can hold 131. What was kind of resistance yesterday, around even 130.8. Let's see if that can be support to send us back up through 132, the squeeze top, with the goal of getting back to at least 133, kind of where we settled a little bit on Friday, and then the daily 8 and 21 above. But if we start to roll back over, lose our up channel that we're in, we're going to be coming back to test this this 1 hour squeeze bottom around 128. Should that give out, we do have the daily 150 down below. Amazon did not get down to its 50 or 100. So again, relative strength did not drop so much with the market on Friday. So let's see if we can hold 130.8, 130, keep on trucking, get through the top of this channel, or ride it up to get to the daily 8 and 21 stacked above. On BA, now this looks like some good relative strength on BA. As you can see, got nowhere near dropping to its daily 50 or 100. On Friday, just got back to the mean. Yesterday, opened right at our key level, shot up to our moving averages. We had 2 key levels there making a zone, pulled back to that zone, basically right in the middle of it, and caught a bounce back off the daily 21 up to the daily 15. So overall, relative strength in BA. Come on. Getting through this little trend line from Friday in this overnight gap. Let's see if we can at least hold the daily 8 on a pullback around 165. And keep trucking to the upside, getting through 166 on our way to 170. We have a daily squeeze up here as well for upside targets. Got that first Keltner up around that 168.8. We've got Friday's high just above 170. And the second Keltner up in this daily squeeze top if BA is going to continue this relative strength. But we need to keep an eye on what they're rotating into, what are the leaders right now with relative strength to the upside. Should those start to give out, we can start seeing sellers step in a little more aggressively. So if we start to lose 165, coming back to this zone, we'll potentially be sending a lot of tech through its trend lines from lows of this week. So definitely keep an eye on BA as long as we're above 165. Still looking good to the upside. Cat. Yeah, did get sold off a little harder. It rejected its daily 100, which was above on Friday, and fell back to the mean. Gapped below, and yesterday got back to and held the mean for the most part. Little prints basically near yesterday's high, currently around 192. So let's see if our 192, this daily 21, and kind of where VWAP was yesterday, around 191.5. See if that can provide support, send us back through yesterday's high to this 193.8 big key level. We have the daily 8 and 15 there. So basically looking for a move from the 21 back to the 8 and 15 above to the upside. And obvious targets after that, psych level 195, the daily first Keltner up, and the daily 100. If we start to lose 192, 191.5, we could end kind of our trend line from this week lows. We can head back to this key level at 189.5, and past that we've got a Keltner and the daily 50 sitting down around 186 and 187. Google. Google did a good job of holding 109 yesterday, just a few prints below it. And, looks a little better than, let's say, maybe Apple or AMD. And a little gap up. Let's see if on a pullback we can hold 110, this channel that we find ourselves in. If we can get going back through 111. First target is to get to this daily Keltner, which is up near 112. Kind of our last rejection point, also near that 112 from Friday. If we can carry through that, next stop would be this daily 8, which is kind of caught up with last week's lows before the Friday sell-off at about 113.5. To the downside, if we start to lose 110, likely going to come back 109, 108, bottom of squeeze. On GS, not the strongest, relatively speaking, just kind of opened, didn't die, didn't really get going, closed right around its open. And, it is printing up near its highs. So, or at least the current bid and ask are up near yesterday's highs. Let's see if we can hold above 335, get trucking up to the daily 21, which sits up near 339. We do have a squeeze top around 337. If we start to lose 335, probably coming back to 333, and the squeeze bottom and first Keltner down around 332.5. JPM, not much interest. I don't know, do we need to finance? I might just axe JPM. I don't feel like anyone in here trades it. Big move to the downside. Really not much yesterday, basically. Got stuck in a 1-point range. Yeah, no real interest here. It is up near its squeeze top, the daily 50. If we can get going from there and hold above 115, it could make a nice push back to 116, kind of our last bounce point on Thursday, and these moving averages above. Meta. While we're waiting on Meta, one thing to note, if you start looking around at moving averages, we moved up enough yesterday and overnight that we are starting to get some higher time frame moving averages flipping back bullish. For instance, the 1 hour 8 is now above its 21. It's trying to hold its 1 hour 21 right now pre-market. If it can get going through that 45, it'll drag the 21 and the 8, which are stacked bullish, above the 45, giving us a fully stacked bullish setup in our 8, 21, 45. And then as you hop around to different time frames, you'll notice, if we're already flipping on the 1 hour, the 30 minutes already flipping. We'll check the 2 hour. Just things to note. Meta looked like it wanted to lead, came back, and sold for a new low rather than holding its overnight low like most things did. So relative, I'd say, weakness in Meta. It is gapping up, but it closed near new lows. So its gap up is not even near highs. Kind of just, this one's kind of lagging behind. Let's see if it can hold 160. Get trucking back up to 162 at this squeeze top. If we start to lose 160, coming down to 158.5 at this squeeze bottom. Microsoft. Yeah, market's slipping just a little. Below 40.56. Looks like that wasn't going to hold up, but we've got our trend line. Could get us bouncing back up to it. We did have some economic data. Sorry, I didn't review the calendar because we didn't really have that much going on this week. But at 8 a.m., we did have a Fed president that's talking. And at 9 a.m., we've got some home price index. We've got some consumer confidence, job openings, quits, and another Fed speaker today. So it could be a choppy day in these squeezes that we find ourselves in. We don't have much going on the rest of the week, just more talkers, some ADP employment, our continuing jobless claims that we get every week, some PMI stuff, and non-farm payroll, kind of the big one on Friday. Microsoft. There you go, already bouncing a little bit at that trend line from overnight. On Microsoft, I'd say, kind of relative weakness yesterday, just wedged on the day. It is gapping out of that wedge, coming back to test highs now. Let's see if 286 can hold. I'm sorry, 266. Yeah, let's see if 266 can hold. If we keep drifting, kind of fills the gap. If we can get going back through 268 and a half. We got the daily 50 sitting up above daily 100. Right around 270. Yeah, we didn't quite get back to filling the gap yesterday on Microsoft. Yep, so a little bit of relative weakness here. Not good to see Apple and Microsoft, weaker and not trying to lead, but at least we are seeing some names holding up well, like Amazon, BA, Cat, whatnot. So pay attention to those trying to lead. Netflix, I do remember some folks saying that it had some good relative strength yesterday, and you're absolutely right. Netflix exploded, filled the gap, and got all the way back to the daily 21, almost engulfing Friday's sell-off. So definitely have some relative strength, and Netflix, they bought the dip on her. From that first Keltner right back to the mean, and then let her kind of just hang out the rest of the day. Let's see if we can stay above 225 on a pullback. Let's see if we can hold our trend lines from lows. If we can take off from, looking like we might open around 226. So if we can hold 226, 225. Let's see if we can get going back up to the mean and to test this trend line from highs. If they're going to continue to rotate into Netflix. If it can't get through that trend line, got the daily 15 and first Keltner past that as an upside target. If we give out that 20, nice computer, freeze for me. At least it's just toss freezing right now. At one point, my whole computer froze yesterday. If we start to give out that 225 on Netflix, probably coming back to test this low from overnight and where we bounced yesterday around 224. And should that give out back to 220 in that daily Keltner. But good relative strength in Netflix. Nvidia. Yep, not really any relative strength here. Had a little pop and then slipped down. Back to VWAP, back to low. Definitely not rotating into chips right now. So not going to keep taking shots until we start to see signs that it wants to get going. Let's see if we can hold 160, start to get through yesterday's highs. Around 162, 163. If it can do that, next stop, this first Keltner up. Kind of our last rejection point from Friday. Around that 166.5. Past that, the daily 50 and daily 8 above at 170. But definitely some weakness in the video. QQQ. Let's see. QQQ. Open around that daily 50. Made a nice push up to squeeze tops. Came back, slipped the daily 50 just for a bit, but then reclaimed it for another push back to squeeze tops. Closed right at it, held it overnight, so pushing back up to squeeze tops. Kind of tapping and rejecting the daily 100 pre-market. Let's see if our trend line can hold us at around 305. Yeah, 305, 306, making kind of a zone of support. As long as we can hold that, we can bounce back up through yesterday's highs, pre-market highs, to test the daily 100. Past that, we do have a Keltner, the first Keltner down, and then 311, our next key level, where we tried to bounce, but then was our last rejection point on Friday. If we start to give out that 305, likely coming back to the daily 50 for another test. And should that slip then down to this 2 hour and low of week for a test near 302.8 for low of week and 302 for that squeeze bottom. Roku, let's see if they rotated at all into Roku like they did Netflix. No. So I'm skipping this name. It's been weak, still weak, didn't really go anywhere. It's going to be pulled around by where the market's going. Same with Shop. One pop yesterday, then did nothing. So no real interest on shop. Snow did do something interesting yesterday. Fell straight to that gap fill area, right? For those that are maybe new to how I deal with these earning gaps, I'll take where we closed and connect it to the next day's low or high if it's a gap up or down. Daily squeeze. There we go. And I'll connect that, or I'll, move that over to the right. Boom. So it held up well on Friday's sell-off, and I talked about in prep yesterday, we could either see it continue to try to lead or take a quick dump to this gap level to kind of catch up with the market that sold off on Friday while Snow did not. She did make that dump, and I believe, I forget which put I was looking at. It might have been the 185s or the 180s, but they went, whichever one I was looking at went like 3 to 8 or 3 to 9 on that drop to that gap level. So definitely always pays to listen in prep, especially if it's a name you like to play. Not everyone likes playing Snow, and that's fine. But if you do and you're watching Snow, every day I'm going to cover an upside downside target. Yesterday that was a great trade straight down to that gap fill level, setting higher lows off of it. Let's see, as long as market is going to try to continue to the upside, likely going to see Snow try to get back through 190, 195 where it sold off from yesterday, and a bid to get back to the psych level of 200. No real squeezes in place on Snow after dumping out of them yesterday, firing them to the downside. Let's see if it can at least continue to hold that gap fill level if market starts to roll. But definitely worth watching, because if market does start to roll and start to set new lows on this week, heading lower, we could see this come back to this gap fill and then again play a catch-up trade back to moving averages in that gap fill. Not necessarily saying it's going to just dump and fill the gap, but it was a good target yesterday to short back to. And it looks like they started buying the dip again. SPX, let's move on. Wrap this up and then get the beast tools out for the day. SPX got up to our key level yesterday, 40.62. I'm going to be gapping up a little bit from where it closed. Back at or near 40.50. Let's see if it takes off from 40.50 back to test 40.62 in this daily 100. It could slip back and fill the gap to 40.30. So definitely looking for 40.30 to hold, get back above 40.50. Try to test this high from yesterday, this daily 100. If it can get through that, upside target, psych level 4100 and 4120. But if we reject and start rolling back, losing 40.30, going to retest yesterday's low, and that daily 50, which is down near 4,000 on SPX. SPY. On SPY. Let's see if 404 can give us support. It was where we kind of rejected in the early part of the day. Then we tried holding above it in the afternoon, gave it out, but we are back above it. So let's see if 404 can provide support, start to send us up through 405, back to test this daily 100 and first Keltner around 406. If we can get through that, 410 is the upside target, kind of where we tried to bounce and sold off midday Friday. We got key levels right around that 410. If we just keep rejecting, start to lose 404, coming back to test trend line from lows of week. Should that start to give out, we will roll back to test low of week, psych level 400, and that daily 50. Should be stepping up pretty close to 400 today. Do have our 2-hour squeeze. We've already run into the top of it and pulling back. Let's see if we can continue to test the top and get through. But if we roll over, we could go from that 2-hour squeeze top to 2-hour squeeze bottom. That spans from 406 down to 400. Square, also kind of doing nothing lately. So I'm just going to move on to Tesla. Tesla. I had some good pops in the morning, basically filling the gap and testing that pre-market high, which it rejected. It got down to its daily squeeze bottom, pre-market, and at the lows midday, then had another push right back up to highs. So some decent relative strength in Tesla, having a gap up, already back to the mean pre-market, and kind of that last rejection point from Friday. Pulling back with the market. Let's see if we can hold above 286 and kind of that pre-market wick. If we can continue to stay above that, we could get another nice push back to this mean. And if we can get through that daily 21, then it's up to the daily 8 and 15, which basically gets us back to engulfing Friday's sell-off on Tesla. We did get down to that daily squeeze bottom. The top sits back up near recent highs on Tesla. So she could be gearing up for a nice push back up to daily squeeze top. But if we keep rejecting moving averages and market starts to roll over, we start to lose 286, we can come back to retest that daily squeeze bottom around 282, 280. And last but not least, VIX. Yesterday we talked about on VIX, for us to get upside and not continue selling lower, we need to see VIX dump below 27, stay below it and reject, and start to fill its gap back down. That's what we got. So we saw a nice, strong relief bounces in the market. VIX now gapping below this gap and trying to stay below it pre-market. If we're going to see continuation today and then continue to buy the dip, start to push the market back higher, I'd like to see VIX stay below 26, below this daily 100, and ultimately kind of below this gap. Call it gap 25.5, where we got down to yesterday. So it's technically there. We're getting a little bit above it right now in this pullback on the market. So, call it 25.75 to 26. Would like to stay below that and see VIX continue to roll over and make H's to get back to 24.5, the daily 50, the daily 8 below. We filled the gap from Friday. Let's see if we can start to erase some of the spike from Friday. But if we are going to see market roll over, we're going to see this truck up to 26, that daily 100, and then start to get through and fight its way back to 26.5, this daily Kelton around 26.75, and 27, where it sold off from yesterday. If we'll see downside of the market, we'll see VIX try to get back up here. So that's it for prep. Hopefully this is helpful for everybody. We will see you in chat. And, good luck today.